What is the worst episode of Ninjago? Is it the absolute worst from Season 11? The Attack from Season 7? The Great Saiyan Robbery? Kaiju Protocol? Or is it just all of Crystallized? Well, those are all wrong, because the worst episode is actually Dragon's Rising episode 18, where they had the audacity to show us Jay after a year of nothing, and it was for less than a minute. John Lego, you hack! Kidding. Just kidding. His arc's been pretty good throughout the years, so I guess this was okay. We've gotten quite a few bad episodes over the years, and it's led to a large range in answers to this question. But there was once a time, long before this channel had a name, that it was decently unanimously agreed that the worst episodes were Season 2's filler episodes. These were sort of buffer episodes for Ninjago's final arc in Season 2, and had a sort of Monster of the Week vibe. Now, typically filler episodes are used in shonen anime to wait for more chapters of their manga to release, while keeping a weekly schedule, filling up the scheduled airing and episode releases, and typically just include unimportant or even non-canon events to the actual main story. Now, in Ninjago's case, it was used for wrapping up the most important artifacts and plotlines in the lore up until that point. Wait, what? So I hear you ask, if they have elements that are so integral to the plot, how are they filler? Well, stupid. If you were listening, you know that's because they had a sort of Monster of the Week vibe to them, with each episode revolving around a single isolated issue being started and resolved within its own runtime. And this went on until the golden weapons were out of the picture and the real plot of the season could start. This is where I feel like most people start to take issue with these filler episodes, since they're taking such important aspects of the show and kind of just throwing them away, without having much significance or longer lasting impact on the rest of the plot. But removing them from this, they're actually not that bad. Call me John Bravery, but I'm just gonna say it. I think they're overhated. Some more so than others, but when on their own feet, these episodes bring in some of the best characters, moments, locations, concepts, and of course, episodes within the show. And if I put it in the title, then you already know what's coming next. That's right, these guys are pretty good. Now, the big issues I think people have with these episodes is after Season 1, Garmadon has the golden weapons. Biggest, baddest power in the land. After decades of plotting and scheming, he finally gets the most powerful tools in all of Ninjago. Items he's been pining for a millennia, or 40 years, or 10. Not the most clear, but still a good while. And the way it's paid off here is, well, underwhelming for the story that we had at the time. Instead of being this solid final arc, a conclusion to this giant cliffhanger of Garmadon getting what he's been looking for after so long, we get a bunch of somewhat disconnected episodes. However, if you disconnect them from that and look at them on their own, they're genuinely a lot better than a lot of people give them credit for. Starting off with Darkness Shall Rise. Now, this one, from what I've seen, is almost the forgotten filler episode. No one really talks about this one when talking about the others, and I think that's mainly because there's no mega weapon, and by proxy, no conflict centered around a Garma Wish. It's a lot more unique and all over the place in comparison to the rest, having essentially two central conflicts, as opposed to just one centered around, of course, the Garma Wish. You have the ninjas having the classic problem of that silly little rent being due, and then needing to seek employment, and then Scales and friends on a little side mission. On top of that, you have Garmadon setting up his new tools and toys to take down the ninja once and for all, with specifically the main plot contrivance of these episodes being the mega weapon, leaving this episode feeling a lot more stuffed compared to the others, with no true central focus, unlike the next 5. Though having the stuffed plot was by no means a bad thing, and was a good way of concluding and continuing the hanging threads from Rise of the Serpentine, and opening the story up for the next phase. Plus, this set the tone pretty well for the following episodes of essentially the ninja vibing around Ninjago City, dealing with whatever the day's problem was. After Darkness Shall Rise, we have Pirates vs. Ninja, and this is where the true start of the filler episode formula happens. And this also kind of feels like the poster boy for these filler episodes. Out of all 6, this one definitely has the simplest premise and plot to it, being Garmadon figures out how to use the mega weapon by bringing back dead pirates, who the ninja then have to fight and defeat. I mean, the meat of the story is summed up completely in the title, outside of the Samurai X Machina at the end. Just Pirates vs. Ninja. While this one is by far the most simple, it is by no means the worst because of it. Since this plot is a lot more simple, that means that there's plenty of room for some fun introductions to be had. With, of course, the introduction of the character that truly makes this episode great, Captain Soto. And of course his crew of goobers of the Destiny's Bounty. I really love Captain Soto, specifically his part in the Season 6 jailbreak scene. But even in his debut, he and his crew are just so silly and wonderful, and I love them so much. There's really only 2 main members of the crew that are worth noting, one being Captain Soto and the other one being No-Eyed Pete, his right-hand man. But the way the rest of his crew, even if they don't have the most personality, the way they bounce off of Captain Soto is just so great. The voice acting on all of them is just such a fun, goofy, silly pirate voice. And the way that they run their operation is just so entertaining, being pirates who are traveled into the future and now have a flying pirate ship. There's a reason I say this is the poster boy for these episodes, and that's because I think it perfectly encapsulates what makes these episodes so great. And there's one specific thing that really encapsulates it's better than anything else. Ninja versus pirates. There's nothing deep. It's just fun. And while I wouldn't say it's the best filler or even does the silly side quest shenanigans the best, it does showcase what is so great about these episodes and what they have to offer the clearest out of all the rest. Just Ninja meandering throughout the episode on random side quests until they have to face the main threat of the episode. Fun silliness. Plus this episode has Dareth, my goat! Bro is the reason Lloyd is the strongest. Not some silly tea. Just his pure aura and mastery over all these different martial arts forms is what carved Lloyd into the ninja he ended up becoming. So what if he got a little bit of an age boost from that drink? Dareth is what put him on the map. Dareth's teachings, his wisdom, his learning that he gave to Lloyd, what he passed down to him, is what made the ninja able to beat the Dark Lord. Truly one of the greats of all time. A masterclass in writing, but alas, if I were to talk about all the greatness and strengths that Dareth brings to the table, and specifically to this episode, it'd add another hour of runtime, so I'll save that for another day and another video. But yeah, Ninja vs. Pirates, a truly wonderful start to the mega weapon hijinks, and what we have in store for us in the next episodes. Speaking of those next episodes, Double Trouble. Now this one has some prime, goofy, campy Garmadon, and definitely has one of my favorite Garmadon moments. Other than this, though, it's probably the worst in the filler. Yeah, there's just a lot of interesting things in this one. First off, the logic just seems more off than it usually is in Ninjago. And this one, it just takes me out a little bit more. Like, how does Lloyd cut this rope on shards of glass without cutting himself? And also, like, it can all be fine and dandy and goofy in some cases, but I just feel like in this episode, on top of all the other stuff it has, it just doesn't really work well in a normal, enjoyable, campy goofiness. And makes the episode feel more incompetent than fun. It's not really the worst, but you wanna know what it is? What is there's some pretty icky things, like Evil Jay's scene, that just make this episode feel like somewhat of a pain to revisit. It just doesn't have the fun balance that most of the normal episodes have, of regular silly goofiness on top of some actual pretty good normal stuff. This one is just, But on the other hand, there's Ham Sandwich. The whole scene with Garmadon asking for ideas is just so much fun, and by far the best scene in this episode, and probably one of the best scenes in the entire filler series. It's just a shame that the rest of the episode kind of falls flat in comparison, with just not a whole lot to love. But this scene is just such a joy, and definitely worth checking out. And other than that, there's Cole's Cake Love being introduced, as well as just general ninja vibing around and whatnot, which is always fun, but I just feel like it doesn't really balance out all the problems and issues this episode has, unlike with the other ones, and definitely makes this one the worst out of the bunch. But I would say if you're on your first watch through, it's definitely worth checking out for continuity's sake. And the Lloyd being recorrupted plotline isn't too bad. It wasn't handled terribly. It's just really the evil ninja is a bit underwhelming, and then there's just some unflattering angles to this episode on top of it. If you are doing Ninjago rewatch, so I would definitely just, stick with the first part of the episode with Garmadon's little brainstorm session, because that scene is genuinely so much fun, and there's just a lot to love with it. Otherwise, the rest of it is definitely the weakest filler episode of the bunch, but it still has its own charm. NinjaBallRun is a masterpiece. This is one of my favorite episodes of Ninjago, and it's just so much fun to watch. While the previous filler episodes were regularly good episodes, this one is just fantastic. Now, NinjaBallRun is basically just a race. Start off by probably one of the funniest causes for a conflict out of these episodes. And that conflict is, of course, Garmadon owning a construction company. Did he wish for this? Did he take a few days off to grow his business? Who cares who the administration is? These are the real questions I need to know, because where did this come from, and where did it go? Did he do this in a week, in a day? It's just not specified, and I love that so much, because it is so funny. Anyways, to the race. I am a sucker for a good race, and boy oh boy does this deliver. First off, probably the best commercial for Ninjago sets in the entire series. Not only does this make me want to get all the sets present in the race, but spend another $5 bajillion on other vehicles to display a big awesome race with them. not play. I meant display. I promise. It is genuinely nice to have an episode centered around vehicles that isn't just there to shoehorn more in, but rather use what's already present in the world and showcase some fun stuff about them. The race itself is just fun and hilarious, with how a bunch of new contestants just join on in randomly throughout, and how each racer is just taken out one by one. It's like the 2's from Star Wars, but with actual characters that, I care about. Sorry, Zabobo frickin' Benjamin Quadenaros, but I don't know who you are, no matter how much my friend who doesn't watch Star Wars tries to gaslight me. You don't exist. You're not real. And I don't care. But yeah, you have all these goofy racers speeding throughout Ninjago, getting to see the sights, and then getting taken out in a bunch of different silly, goofy ways, until it's just Big G and the Ninja. Sorry, small little orphan, but you're not finishing this race. And just the way that the ninja have to keep getting over hurdle after hurdle, and how they use the resources around them. And by resources, I mean calling up Jay's parents and borrowing a piece of their car. It's just so much fun. All the way through to the finish line, it's just great. Like, every part of this race has something that affects something. Like, there's never a part of this race that really feels like it's dragged out or anything. It's constantly moving, and just always something is going on. Some new fun thing that the ninjas have to either get past or get around, or you have other racers dealing with each other. You have Scales breaking out of prison and then just join on in with the cops going in as well for the love of the game. It's just, there's so much to love about this episode. You have all the characters we get to see return for this race, like Jay's parents, the Serpentine Generals, Cruncha and Knuckles, and then you get to see so much of Ninjago's landscape, which we don't really get to see a whole lot of in the main episodes, unless it's the focus of where they're going. So it's just really cool to see them just travel throughout the lands. And then on top of all of this, not only do we get to see beloved characters again, not only do we get some amazing jokes and wonderful commentary from the announcers, not only do we get to see the land of Ninjago like never before, but we get a new Royal Blacksmith song, baby! Oh! Not their best work, but it's still solid. And this episode is just the epitome of classic goofy Ninjago in all of its glory. Every stretch of the race, perfect 10 out of 10 episode, and the pinnacle of silly, wacky zaniness that I love Ninjago for. Now, the writers, seeing that they couldn't top the peak silly wackiness of NinjaBallRun, they decided to kind of re-rail the series a bit and start to progress the main story in a significant way with Child's Play. Now, while NinjaBallRun was generally good and the peak of silly, goofy chicanery, this episode's strong suit was the story. Wow. Well, it is another mega weapon cause plotline. This one feels like it has the richest main conflict revolving around the ninja being turned into kids while having to face the Grundle. Ooh. Surface level, that's all, but the actual story of this episode is all about Lloyd growing up to become the Green Ninja. Up until this episode, we haven't really gotten much from Lloyd, outside of him wanting to do cool ninja stuff and prove himself. Typical small child fighting with big adult story, you know? This, and of course his relationship with his dad, which has been more focused on the Garmadon side anyways. So for the main character of the series, not too much focus, with only the occasional moment or episode like All of Nothing and Double Trouble, giving him a little more prominence to the story. But here's where we really start to get more from him, with his new conflict of being a kid destined to face his father by the time he comes of age. And we see this affecting him just wanting to goof off with his friends, but having this great pressure from his destiny weighing down on him. This episode is about Lloyd having to come to terms with his own path, and because of who he is, he must mature now and leave his childhood behind to do what he was born to do. This episode and its themes are what shoot off Lloyd's arc and character development going forward into the second half of season 2, where he has to get ready to come to terms with what his legacy will be and the path he is destined to follow. Now, I'm not going to pretend that this premise was done perfectly, because of course it's flawed. But that's not really the episode's fault, and more so the problem with how much time they give it to allow this idea to grow. And with a short time frame, they had to wrap it up by aging up Lloyd, as opposed to showing it progress as he naturally ages. Which, given recent DR events, may have been a brilliant long-term strategy, and definitely planned. Anyways, given the constraints around this episode, I think it was handled very well, with the problem Lloyd facing being one that feels very natural for him to have. Of course, being a kid forced to mature and train for his future constantly is going to make him feel as though he's missing out on so much of his youth, and we see how that affects him throughout, only to decide by the end it's time to face his destiny. At 10 years old. He then sacrifices the childhood he could have had to save his friends, and while we didn't get to spend much time with this conflict, the resolution is completely in line with his character being someone who, wants to prove himself and help others, albeit in a very pompous, childish way. But then he does it, sacrifices what time he could have had, and shortens the clock on when he has to meet his maker. Because Garmadon's his dad and maker. And launch himself and us into the next part of his arc in Season 2, Part 2 of Season 2. Of Ninjago, Masters of Ninjutsu, not Dragon's Rising. Finally, we are at Wrong Place, Wrong Time, the final filler episode of Season 2. Now, both this and Child's Play can't really be considered filler. While you could skip the 3 prior ones without much loss in plot relevance, these ones actually have a significant weight on things, and stuff actually happens, with both becoming only more and more relevant as the seasons go on. Season 3 Golden Armor, Fritz Donegan, Dragon's Rising Green Ninja, the whole fact that Lloyd grows up by the time Season 2 actually really kicks off. But yeah, in this episode, the ninja basically go back in time to the first episodes to get the mega weapon off the menu. And for Garmadon from altering the future and he and Lloyd's destined battle. This episode works great as an ending to these one-off conflicts, despite not being the strongest in story or goofy goodness in my opinion. Though not being the strongest, it's still not bad in either of those categories by any means whatsoever. It definitely has its flaws and doesn't reach the highs of NinjaBallRun or Child's Play in their own respective strengths. But this episode is just a great cap off to not only the filler episodes, but the golden weapons and the 4 OG ninjas' time as the focus of the series as a whole, transitioning into Lloyd becoming the lead and his destiny being the driving force going forward. Where Child's Play was the start of Lloyd's lead, this episode was a send-off to the main 4, focusing entirely on them as they go back to the pilots and encounter their past selves in golden weapons. They got to reflect on their past choices and see how far they've come since becoming ninja in both skill and maturity, starting as 4 students and becoming not just the guardians of the Green Ninja, but as teachers. Dare I say, senseis. It's like poetry. Passing on the lessons they've learned over the seasons to him so he can use it in his final confrontation and hopefully bring balance to Ninjago. It's just a great look back on the journey we've been on with these 4 before heading into what is the original end of the show and seeing how much they had grown, as well as just the show in general. I mean, take a look at the animation, the pilots, and the animation in this episode. Well, we're definitely not at... It's still a very significant boost in quality, and it's just really cool to see how it's changed over time. It really was an end of an era for Ninjago that was just these 4 goofballs trying to stop evil and, be a ninja. Obviously, at this time, Ninjago hadn't had the legacy that it does now, and was not even at 2 full seasons yet, but still, it was a long journey. At least it felt that way to me, and I'm sure many other kids at the time, who, grew up watching it weekly, or on their Wii through Netflix. And to kind of see things come full circle before going into the final battle is just a really cool way to end off this era. Now, as I'm sure you've noticed, this isn't the most scientific, fact-ridden review. The main appeal of these episodes is definitely their campy, goofy, slice-of-life aspects, and as one of the only people in the entire world whose favorite part of JoJo's is Part 4, I really enjoy a nice break where we just get to see our favorite cast of goobers just, vibe. If you like more plot-driven, story-focused parts, that's completely fair. And these episodes are probably not for you. This video isn't really a serious, these episodes are hidden gems, and more so just a love letter to these kinds of episodes that we really don't get much more of anymore. As well as these episodes specifically, which have a lot of good, important, impactful stuff on the rest of the series, and a lot of what I enjoy in Ninjago. I mean, it introduces friggin' Dareth, dude. How much better could you get than that? But we really don't get episodes quite like this anymore. We definitely still have gotten filler in the recent past of specifically the 11-minute era, but it's kind of not really the same as this, where it's more so focused on other characters and just not really much on our boys. Our 4 golden boys, and Lloyd and Nia. Just goofing around wherever, doing whatever they might need to do for whatever purpose, and it's just It'd be great to get more episodes of just the ninja going around town, doing random stuff, chilling and hanging out together. Because one of the best parts about Ninjago, in my opinion, is just the character dynamics. I love getting to see these guys just hang out together and just, banter. I mean, Cole and Jay have one of the best dynamics in media, in my opinion, and it's just a shame that we haven't gotten more of them since season 6. And I really wish that there was episodes like this that were able to capture just their dynamics easier, better, and just put them on display. Just show them, goofing around. And that's why I just really love these episodes, and why I think they're just great, and definitely deserve a lot more credit and respect than they tend to get. I just really love these episodes so much, and I hope one day, please, John Lego, Doc Wyatt, Kevin Burke, anyone out there, that we can just get more silly filler like this. Doesn't even have to be canon. Hey, give us something like Woo's Tea Shop shorts. More of that, please. But I mean, if you disagree and you'd rather not get any of this, silly fun off the side stuff, well, that's fine by me. Just kidding, you're wrong, nerd. These episodes are perfect, flawless gems of media, and they are all 10 of 10s. Hell yeah! Scrah! Now, feel free to yell at me in the comments below, and while you're ragefully typing, why not, oops, finger slipped, and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Woo! Anyways, bye-bye.
Is there that you can do that nobody knows what to do with you? What else is there that you can do?